brief diversion to Italy, Formula One finally arrives in Europe, where the upgrades will likely be just as rapid as the cars themselves. Welcome back to Formula One Grid Talk podcast. This is episode 195, where we will preview the Spanish Grand Prix at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona. I'm your host, Tom Horrox, and I'm joined today by Everything F1 star attraction, Mr. Tom Downey.
Hello.
And making her Grid Talk debut, Everything F1's answer to Nico Hulkenberg, it's Sophia Richmond.
Hi.
So we are on all major audio podcasting platforms, and you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you're feeling generous, as this really helps us reach new heights as we continue to grow in the audio field. If you enjoyed these podcasts but want more, please subscribe to us on YouTube and click the bell to be notified when we go live, as we have over 500 subscribers now, and we have loads of video content, including articles and shorts for you to get your teeth into. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Grid Talk is also available on Amazon, and we've partnered with Amazon to give you a free trial of Audible Plus, so please check the show notes of this episode to find out more information. But right now we are here arriving at the Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit de Catalunya, so I'd just like to get your thoughts, both of you, starting with you, Sophia. So we're going to a very different venue after Formula One's recent trip to Miami. What do you think the new fans of Formula One are going to see the difference between Spain and Miami this weekend?
I'm gonna feel sorry for them because as much as I've slated a bit about the Miami Grand Prix, Barcelona is to me notoriously one of the most boring tracks. So from the hype, and obviously Miami did not, in my opinion, live up to how good it was going to be. And obviously the record-breaking TV views and everything, to go from that high to Barcelona and then Monaco right after, it's gonna be interesting. I feel like people are gonna sleep halfway through the race, in all honesty, but they can watch F2 and F3 in a W series as well instead.
Yeah, lots of support races. Obviously, just a W series of the official support categories that was in Miami. Tom, your thoughts on the incoming Spanish Grand Prix and what we just saw in Miami last weekend?
Well, I think people who saw Miami as their first F1 race, in some ways they're going to be in for the same thing because both circuits are pretty gash. But on the flip side, they're going to see what's the sort of older generation of F1 fans they're used to. Very much the sort of dedicated circuit. Everything is there. It's a I don't want to say a proper racing track because that's somewhat doing Miami a disservice. Well, I mean, it's not because it wasn't brilliant, but it's a much it's very much a staple on the calendar. Whereas Miami was very much about the event, the pomp and circumstance. For me, it was far too gaudy and American, but that's because I'm a miserable old Brit. I think if people are tuning into the Spanish Grand Prix expecting a police escort and Stetsons and all the rest of it on the podiums, they're going to be sorely disappointed. As the actual racing, well, historically, Barcelona's never been that good. I mean, the only good race I can really recall was 2016. That's because both Mercedes wiped them out and my boy Max won his first ever race. So take from that what you will. Maybe we'll see some slightly closer passing this year, because obviously with the new car regs, and obviously Catalonia had some slight circuit upgrades last year. I'm optimistic is no, that's too positive. I'm hopeful more than no, not even hopeful. It's just please just don't be bad. But it's Catalonia. It's going to be boring.
Oh, I absolutely love your rants, Tom. Absolutely love them. It's. I think coming from what we just saw in Miami, it's going to be a very different vibe, as you rightly say. I think probably there's the Grand Prix in Miami was slightly better than the direction made it look, as there was not hundreds but lots and lots of passing that we didn't see, lots of battles that we weren't privy to, and only found out afterwards when a huge glut of penalties came in because people were cutting tracks and left, right and centre. So I think very much a work in progress, the Miami Grand Prix, but completely different to what we're expecting here. As you say, it's the traditional testing venue or shakedown venue this year that Formula One use. So the teams are going to know so much about this track, and it's really going to be a kind of a return to normal. I said a return to Europe and hopefully Mercedes will be hoping a return to form for them. But starting with the team that's top of the pile, which is Ferrari. Sophia, your thoughts on Ferrari and how they're going to fare this weekend? Because surely with the mid-speed corners that this track has, it's going to favour them over Red Bull's top line speed, or do you think different?
To be fair, because of how well Ferrari's been this season and comparing it to Mercedes, who obviously have had a lot of wins and a lot of podiums in the last 4 or 5 years at this track, and Ferrari's been in like 4th, 5th place since 2017 in some cases. So I think it's for Ferrari, but I don't know if it's going to be a 1-2, if it's going to be a 1-3, how it's going to be. But there will be at least probably one, if not both Ferraris on podium, I think, for this weekend, next weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a bold call. I think certainly the way that Red Bull have been going, they look like they're going to be strong, but Ferrari certainly have got a bit of a richer vein of form at this track than Red Bull. Red Bull do certainly seem to be on fire, but they don't really have any history of victories here, apart from, as you alluded to earlier, Tom, your boy Max Verstappen's first ever win. So, your thoughts on, can he repeat that this weekend, or is it going to be very much a rescue attempt for Red Bull this weekend?
I don't think he's going to repeat 2016, mainly because I don't think we're going to see the two Mercs at the front. Had to get that in there. But no. It's Red Bull do seem to be on fire at the minute, and I'm not talking about their engines from Bahrain. So so maybe they'll it's going to be a weird one. And Sophia made a very good point when she was talking about the speed down the main straight, as opposed to say the middle sector, because we know how bloody quick that Red Bull is. Sorry, I could just see my cat flopping down the stairs behind me. That's what happens when they get old, like the dad. It is going to be an interesting one, and I think it is very cliche to say, but the start of the race is going to be so important in. I just punched the mic. I'm really sorry. I think the start of the race is going to be really important in I was going to say Bahrain. No, Barcelona. That's half right. Because we've seen it. Maybe it was pressure, or maybe it was Watford, Leclerc in Imola, where he had a bit of a poor launch, but then Max had a poor launch in the in the sprint race in Imola. So, especially if those are on the front row together, which, let's be fair, is probably going to happen. I do want to see Carlos Sainz get a pole position. I really want to see him take pole, because I like Carlos Sainz. I don't mind Leclerc. He's got a bit of a sort of that George Russell aura about him, where he's just like almost a bit entitled. That's going to piss some people off, I know. Oh well, don't at me. But yeah, I don't think Max is going to sort of like repeat that kind of victory. I think Ferrari probably will be stronger on the day. And they seem to be making all the right strategy calls at the moment, which is not what could be said for them a couple of years ago. As for again, like Sophia said, she thinks we'll see one, maybe two. Definitely see one, maybe two Ferraris on the podium. I think most of the season is going to be, we're going to see two of one and one of the other, between the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. But obviously we can't see all of them, because 2 into 1 doesn't work. Just ask Max in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. And given that the Red Bull's reliability at the start of the season has majorly hampered Max Verstappen's championship charge, the Red Bulls still sit there just 6 points behind Ferrari in the constructors, which a lot of that is down to Carlos Sainz's issues. But only just the one race off the podium for Leclerc, just the 2 retirements off the podium for Sainz. They're certainly showing the consistency there. But Red Bull, despite the issues, are still there. So it's certainly, I think this is going to be a key moment in the season, because so many upgrades are expected to come here, and have Red Bull gone too many upgrades too early? Are they going to run out of money in the budget cap towards the end of the season, which certainly Mattia Binotto is hopeful is going to happen. He can't see how they can just maintain this level of upgrade and still maintain the budget cap. So it's going to be a challenge, and I think that this race yes, it's not known for its amazing racing, but it's certainly going to be. It's going to shape the championship, so it's intriguing from that side. But the current constructors champions, Mercedes, already a long way, over 60 points behind Ferrari in the constructors championship, just 95 points. Big upgrades planned, but they keep getting delayed, Sophia. So what do you think is Mercedes are looking for this weekend, and the team dynamic? Is George Russell going to continue to beat Hamilton, or is Hamilton going to get on top of his young charger?
I mean, I kind of hope so. I like this new kind of fresh view. Like, it's giving like Nico vibes to an extent, obviously with not a lot of the fighting, but the fact that we knew George was really good and he just come out of the bat straight away. Like, he's the only driver that's finished in the top 5 every single race this season so far. He is proving that he deserved that seat. And the fact that he's doing better than Hamilton, and the controversy and the commentating about Toto apologizing to Lewis saying it's undrivable, yet you see George doing so well. The dynamic, I feel like, is going to shift, because given maybe another 4 to 5 races, it's going to be who is 1 and who is 2, and it's looking like it's going to be George's 1 and Lewis's 2. As much as it annoys Hamilton fans, come at me as much as you want, but like it's gonna happen. It's on track. I mean, Mercedes are trying to do upgrades and they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Obviously, they brought the new wings front and rear in Miami. Did prove better because they finished P4 and P5, but I don't know. I mean, there was rumors about new side pods potentially coming down the line. I don't know if it's for Barcelona or for other races, but there will be some new upgrades and we'll see. But first of all, they need to fix the porpoising as well. Like, that's the key issue that they have, and they kind of got it with Miami, but I don't know. It's not Mercedes year, in the nicest way possible. It's not Mercedes year. I don't think it's too late in the game right now for it.
Yeah, certainly it's not started well, and Toto Wolff has said that they're out of the constructors. Lewis has said he's out of the drivers. But you can certainly go off some people with their opinions around Lewis Hamilton there. But no, I'm of a differing opinion. I think there's a lot of circumstances led to that. I do think that George has slightly outperformed Hamilton over the season, but it's certainly not as big as some people are making out. And I think they're still very well matched. He is doing a fantastic job in that car, though. So it's going to be, yeah. You were mentioning about the side pods. I believe that there's been mention of potentially going back to the old concept with the old side pods that they debuted in Barcelona last time round. But they're certainly not going to do it this weekend because they need to see how that car performs against the car that was at Barcelona for the shakedown, because they're 2 different concepts. They've got this is the first time they can have a real yardstick of a comparison. So it's really important that this weekend is massively important for Mercedes. And I do think that if it doesn't work and they can't get on top of this problem with the car, this may well be the end of their championship charge, the end of their competitive season, and they start looking at next season, which means it may well be the first year since Lewis Hamilton has joined Formula One that he doesn't win a race, because if that car's not being developed and they're just writing it off and going for next year, then that I cannot see, barring a Hungary situation or something like that I cannot see Lewis Hamilton winning a race this year unless that car dramatically changes. But a team that we still hope will win a race this year, or certainly I do, everyone's second favourite team, taking that mantle away from Williams, my opinion anyway, McLaren, Tom. Their car just... It seems to be a Jekyll and Hyde car. One track it's great, another track it's terrible, and just Ricciardo just seems to consistently be a step behind his teammate. How do you see their weekend going, and with that, the rest of their season?
Oh God, that's a question. This weekend they're either going to be like P5 and 6 or P15 and 16. They're going to do a Yuki Tsunoda of 2021. They're either going to be in Q3 or out in Q1. And yeah, you said it yourself. You said their car is like Jekyll and Hyde. It really is. I cannot sort of I can't work out how it can be sort of like so. Because they had quite a good weekend in Imola. Granted, Lando sort of almost lucked into the podium, but he was still running P4. So they had quite quite a good weekend then. But then we come to Miami, and they were and Zach Brown was already saying, "Oh, it's going to be a tough race, blah blah blah, all this, all that." It was showing so much promise, especially at the end of the tail end of last year. But no, it just seems to have fizzled into nothingness. Yeah, Danny Rick. Oh God, here we go. He is just a step behind. He's never. I mean, I know he takes a while to settle into a team. We saw it when he joined Renault in 2019. The first season was. I was one of those ones. I was expecting big things from him because he'd always driven pretty well at Red Bull, especially given how things sort of ended then with his unreliability or the rest of it. He was always king of the late breakers, because after he actually sent one at the inside of Bottas at Monza a few years ago, well, many years ago now, that was him in a nutshell. And he did do that in the McLaren. I think it was turn one. I think it was Miami. I can't remember, but I remember seeing him do it in a race, and I thought that's the Danny Rick that we all know. But it just seems like it almost seems like it's a distant memory now. And I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's because he's not gelling with the car, or if the car sets up more for Lando, or if, because, I don't know if Danny Rick prefers an oversteery or an understeery car and the Lando prefers the opposite, or, there's obviously something not quite clicking. And yes, he won a race last year, because he had one of his rare decent weekends. But countless times we've seen him behind Lando and a step behind Lando, and it cost the team third in the championship last year. As for McLaren's season, if they can sort of iron out these issues with the car being so inconsistent and you're just sort of like underperforming, then they'll have a decent season ish. They're not going to be challenging for the top two spot. It's just not going to happen. It pains me to say it because I really want to see McLaren up there. Tom, you said they are everybody's second favorite team. I think that's bang on the money. Everybody likes McLaren. Everybody wants McLaren to see McLaren do well. It's one of those names. So when you think of F1, you think of McLaren, Ferrari, and Williams. Those are the quintessential F1 names. So if they can sort the car out, I mean, it's easy to say, isn't it? It's easy for me, Big Lump sitting in his home office talking about it. I'm not an aerodynamicist and I never will be. I'm not clever enough. But just that they really run the risk of losing some places in the constructors this year because there are teams around them, apart from Aston Martin, who are looking pretty sharp in the midfield, namely the Ferrari powered teams.
Yeah, there's one of the key things that I'm taking from this season so far is that there is no midfield. There's a field and then there's the front two. It's certainly the front three anyway. And McLaren, although most people will say that they're probably that fourth team there, and they are in fourth in the championship right now. It certainly is by no means guaranteed. There's every team has scored points quicker than any other time I can remember in recent Formula One history. Anyway, certainly in the time that I've been watching the sport since the mid '90s, or early '90s. So it's they, like you say, they need to get on top of this problem and they need to start moving forwards. I don't think they're not going to be challenging Mercedes unless Mercedes completely sack off the season. But even so, you've got other teams that are in the wings there that have shown pace. Alpine have shown pace, and AlphaTauri have shown pace if they haven't managed to deploy that. But the team that have shown more pace than anyone, certainly of one of their drivers, is Alfa Romeo in the hands of Valtteri Bottas, clearly loving life, released from the shackles of Mercedes and a number one driver. But his teammate Guan Yu Zhou, just a 1 point finish so far and in the opening race of the season. Sophia, what do you think about Alfa Romeo and their chances this weekend and just how their season's going as well? It's certainly been an improvement, and I actually enjoyed speaking about Alfa Romeo now, which has not been the case for a few years.
I love now the Valtteri is back. It has moved to Alpha. Like, even if you see clips and videos, how he's talking about driving the team, it's just a breath of fresh air. Like, he feels probably more appreciated more ever than he's ever been with the Mercedes. And coming into this race, he has finished third every year since 2018, statistically, in a Mercedes. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not, but he's going to be quite high up, which was surprising because obviously Alpha's never really done that well historically for the last couple of years. They've been the bottom, like one of the 3 bottom teams, and now, like you said, it's 3 teams and then the rest is kind of grouped in together. I think they have a good shot. Guan Yu Zhou was potentially going to do quite well in Miami, but then he had a fuel problem. It was too hot too quickly, so that's why he had to retire. But like, you could tell that he was so disappointed. Like, he is proving to do a better first year than compared to like Yuki and Mick last season. I think points could be on the cards for Guan Yu Zhou, but I'm not entirely sure whereabouts. And then Valtteri, I will say points for sure, because he's just been consistent as well. He's been like George to an extent, not top 5, but in the points for sure.
Yeah, the memes have been flying about Bottas, with the one with him looking back at the scoreboard, seeing him above the Mercedes. That's been
iconic, literally iconic.
Yeah, it's been flowing a lot. But another person that's a bit of a meme lord himself in Fernando Alonso, always good for getting some headlines. Driving for Alpine. Unbelievably, he's got more penalty points this season than actual points. Back in 16th place in the championship. I think we've just lost Tom, so I'm gonna send this to you, Sophia. But Alpine. So for the season, Ocon doing better than his much more experienced teammate Fernando Alonso somehow. But Fernando Alonso certainly showing pace, but just not putting together a race weekend. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, just not consistent enough. Like, again, I'm relating back to Miami. 2 5-second penalty points due to crashes, both with Gasly, I believe it actually was. So he's just not consistent compared to Ocon. Like, Ocon's flying a low race. He's putting his head down and racing as there's nothing really to care about, which is what you want, because you need to make sure that you don't take too much risk or too little risk, because you might crash and it just ruins your whole race. So I'm actually impressed to see Ocon doing better than Alonso. I thought it'd be quite like very close, fair fighting, but it's a nice breath of fresh air, and we'll see how it goes this race in Barcelona, because obviously Fernando Alonso being Spanish, this track is literally his home race. It's iconic. The amount of Spanish fans, like, it'll be more Spanish fans for Alonso than it would be for Ferrari for sure this time around.
Yeah, and with Fernando Alonso, his having a 9th place to his name, and then just 11th in the last race was unbelievably his best result since the first race of the season. He just seems to be trying a little too hard, in my opinion. Esteban Ocon just being steady Eddie, just getting on with things. Again, not putting in brilliant results, just a 14th place, but then the rest of the time just tail end points, just picking up. I couldn't believe it when I saw just how many points he had compared to Alonso. It was very, very under the radar. But that's certainly it's big time for Alonso now. It's his home Grand Prix. He needs to deliver now. He's been saying that it's his best season in decades, which is it's kind of like modus operandi for Alonso. Every race is his best race ever, no matter where he finishes. But moving on to AlphaTauri, Gasly's always seems to be the perennial overachiever, with Tsunoda being the perennial underachiever in that team, Tom. But given the way the season's gone so far for Gasly, just only 2 points finishes so far this season, and Tsunoda, his usual trick of starting well and going missing. Can you see things turning around for them this weekend?
I'd like to hope so. Whether it actually will remains to be seen. Which again is an easy thing to say. Tsunoda. Well, I'd actually say no. Let me backtrack on that completely. I'd say Gasly probably needs somewhat of a bigger weekend than Tsunoda, because Tsunoda's he's only in his 2nd season, and he's got the backing of. He's got the backing of Honda, which obviously have an influence in Red Bull. So he's good. He's still got he's got all that backing. Gasly, on the other hand, it's not that he needs to prove himself, but he's it's sort of like it's all or nothing, or I'm not quite sure what the right phrase is, but for Gasly, it's it needs to happen now. And what I mean by that is, if he's not going to get that Red Bull seat in 2023, he's also not going to stay at AlphaTauri for 2023, because that's the junior team. and someone like Liam Lawson or Yuri Vips or whoever else or who's on the Red Bull roster is going to end up taking one of those seats. One of Sophia's colleagues, Jamie, wrote a really good piece on this on our website where he said that it's sort of now that's the phrase you're looking for, now or never. And it is now or never for Gasly. Because do we really think he's going to go back to Red Bull for next year? No, I don't think so. So he almost needs to like market himself. I mean, he is a race winner in F1. There are a lot of people who come through F1 who don't even hit the podium. Cough, Hulkenberg, cough. So it's he needs a big weekend this weekend at a circuit which all the drivers know, not only through through previous racing, but through testing or shakedown or whatever they called it this year, or just I think they just called it a sesh this year. I don't think it's about the sesh that some of them had in mind, but also through their junior careers that have raced there, a fair amount. So it's a circuit where we should see the best out of some of the drivers, you would think, because they're all going to be familiar with it. Obviously, experience tells a big part, but Gasly needs a big weekend. Tsunoda, his qualifying is getting better because I slated him a lot last year. Because, like I said earlier about the McLarens, Tsunoda was either P4 or P14 or P5 or P15 in quali. He was very hit and miss. But this year he seems to have not calmed down, but maybe matured is the right word. But he's sort of like taken that sort of slight edge off. Because last year we heard a lot of him, sort of shouting down the radios. Shouted on the radio at his, at his race engine and all the rest of it, and they were almost sort of having to ask him to pipe down a bit. Whereas this year he is a bit more sort of restrained or a bit more sort of level-headed. He is still very young. Let's not forget. He was born in the 2000s, which makes me feel rather old.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, anytime, mate. But he's so it's just it might even be a case that he ends up having one of those sort of quiet races where he puts in a decent quali. There's nobody really around him, and he just has to bring the car home. I don't really think that'll happen this year, mainly because of how competitive the field is. But yeah, AlphaTauri, well, the drivers, Gasly especially, like I said, need a big weekend.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at the championship standings, Tsunoda, although he has gone missing for most of the season, does still sit ahead of Pierre Gasly, which is, just really highlights just how bad Gasly's season has been. Some due to luck, some due to him also going missing in races and some bad decisions, and a bit of bad luck from Torpedo Alonso as well has definitely compromised his season. But he, from someone that has been on everyone's radar as a top driver to never get back into that Red Bull seat, and how people like McLaren and Aston Martin and Alpine will be looking for somebody, and Gasly was always top of that list. You only are as good as your last 5 results, they say in Formula One, and Gasly has picked absolutely the worst time to have a bit of a dip in form, and if it continues for the rest of this season, then he certainly will be overlooked again for that lead seat. And but somebody who won't be looking back at their last race, let alone their last 5 races, is Mick Schumacher in the Haas, Sophia. He's certainly thrown away a great opportunity at points in what was not necessarily a move that he needed to make on Sebastian Vettel, regardless of blame. It certainly was a situation he didn't need to put himself in. Kevin Magnussen has been grabbing all the headlines in that Haas team, scoring all of their points so far. How do you see their weekend panning out? Is it going to be another points performance from Magnussen, or are we going to see Mick Schumacher finally break that duck for points?
Oh, that was heartbreaking watching that, especially because it was with sub of all drivers as well. Like, literally broke my heart because both of them were running into the points. I think Mick just needs to get his head down and kind of drive. It might sound easy, but obviously it's not. But I just feel that he needs to pick up the pace. He needs to kind of get more out of it, and especially now that he has Kevin Magnussen, who has been with Haas for 4 years now, 3 years, he has the knowledge to help Mick. Whereas when it was Nick and Nikita, wow, almost forgot his name for a minute.
That wouldn't be a bad thing.
Exactly, Mazepin. It was two rookies, so you couldn't really understand it that well. And so now that he has somebody like Kevin, who is again scoring all the points, I am not a secret. I love Kevin Magnussen. I've said him so many times on the F1 podcast that I really do enjoy him as a driver, and I'm so happy that he's actually able to come back this season. I think Kevin Magnussen points or close to points, and I think Mick will be not so far behind because, again, it's an iconic track. We've been there before this year already in the new regs and new cars. Haas has been doing very well, which has been the surprise, I think, of the entire season. How well they have been really good and like coming from being bottom of the team in constructors for the last year, 2 years. It's going to be quite interesting. But yeah, Mick just needs to pace. He needs maybe more guidance and support from Haas and Kevin Magnussen, like advice, like an older advice. Obviously he has Seb, but obviously Seb's not driving a Haas. So having Kevin Magnussen coming in and having like a older figure to kind of help him support it, especially because obviously the new regs as well, some of it's very tricky, the 18-inch tires, the different wings. It's going to be interesting, the new side pods as well, obviously. But yeah, no, I think Kevin Magnussen points, if not close to points, and Mick kind of close, maybe within 2 to 3 to follow, I think. Hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah, it's again not really known for all of its drama, Spain in Leicester's rain or something crazy happening. But we did have a good race there last year, so we'll take that as hope that this year we'll get something decent as well. With the cars hopefully being able to follow closer through those mid-speed corners, we may actually see some passing on track, which would be good. Someone who has certainly struggled with passing this year, and someone who fails to check their mirrors a lot, with Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll coming up. We'll throw to you, Tom. Aston Martin. It's been a woeful start. Just the 6 points on the table, 9th in the championship. They've been missing drivers for parts of the season. Their fuel was too cold. It just seems like a bit of a nonsense going on at the moment. And now rumours coming out about the potential sale of the team to Audi, to Volkswagen Group, which I don't know if you're aware of. It seems to be coming out in the last few days. So, what's your thoughts on Aston Martin, and how long will it be before Lawrence Stroll spontaneously combusts live on telly?
That day can't come soon enough. Aston, yeah. Oh, God, here we go. So I understand why Lawrence Stroll bought the team, because obviously he wants to bring the Aston Martin name back to F1, because he hasn't been in F1 as a constructor since the 50s or whatever. But I think he underestimated how much work needs to be done in order for a team to become, actually a good team. Because Aston Aston, when they were racing Point of Force India and Force India racing the Point of India, Force Point, or whatever they were called for those 6 weeks, they were king of sort of like making the most out of, their limited budget, because they had a budget of something like 100 million or 140 million or whatever it was, and they were. They were always punching well above their weight. If you look up when they had Checo and Hulkenberg and the team, they had some fantastic results then for a team that didn't really have any sort of didn't have any business being that high up. Checo got some podiums, Hulkenberg, well, we know, but they were always sort of like the plucky underdog, and I really liked Force India. Then when Stroll took over, obviously then Lance Stroll came in, and then I think when Stroll Senior was involved at Williams, that should have been an indication of how fickle F1 can be and how much is needed for a team to become successful. I know he's building this big, great factory by Silverstone. I actually drove past it when I went to Cosworth in the week. I drove past Mercedes and hissed at them. But no, I know he's putting money into resources and all the rest of it, but F1 is in a budget cap era, which that's a whole different conversation. I think it's good, because it sort of levels it out. F1's never going to be a spec series, we know that, and it never should be. But I think Stroll is wanting to do to that team what would take 5 or 10 years to do. I think he was expecting results in a year, in 2 years. And, you can throw all the money in the world at it. But as I've seen in the sort of like working world, is if there are people there who know that someone is willing to keep pumping cash into something, or people are just going to get lazy, or they're just going to start saying, "Oh, right, we'll just get more money to do it." Because I think Aston Martin have suddenly become very cash rich, they're sort of like, "Oh my God, what do we do? Should we buy 17 coffee machines and should we turn it into the Wolf of Wall Street in here?" No, that money goes into development. That money goes into this and that. For me, having seen the interior of some, of some factories, some direct involved, some indirect involved with F1, it says a lot about a team as to sort of like how the inside of a factory looks and the facilities they have, all the rest of it. I know they have to make an impression, but they have to get the priorities straight. And at the minute, I don't know if Aston Martin are. Also, I don't think their driver lineup is helping. Stroll, had an all right junior career. He did win F3. Yeah, fair enough. Fairly competitive. Who was his opposition that year? Antonio Giovinazzi. Okay. He was never really going to win, was he? Let's be fair. So, and then Seb. As much as I like Seb, I think Ferrari ruined him. And I think, I think now we're all just like, oh, I pity for him, and he sort of turned into the nice guy we see his relationship with Mick Schumacher, all the rest of it. Aston need a driver who will come in, whether it's a race driver or a development driver or whatever, whoever. They need someone who will come in and sit down and say, right, I'm pushing the brake and I'm putting this amount of pressure in and nothing's happening. They need someone who has got that kind of level of attention to detail. Like when Kubica went to Williams in 2019, because you'd come from Renault before, and you got in the car. That's why I used the brake pedal reference, because that was the story that I read once about Kubica. He said that when he pressed the brake pedal, it was like nothing was happening. Aston Martin needs somebody like that. They need somebody in that car who can sit in there, be happy with how awful the car is, and just give feedback so that they can actually build a proper racing car and give Aston Martin the name that it deserves, and give it the team and the car and everything, give the brand what it deserves in the sport.
Yeah, it'd be great to see Aston Martin actually I would say back at the top, but they've never been there. So just at the top of Formula One in general, and that great brand, and seeing them make an impact on motorsport to help the car brand as well. But Williams are the last team we're going to go to, obviously, for this episode. They're still bottom of the championship sphere, but they seem to be in a better place. At least they're in there, they're scrapping, but they're not really getting the results at the moment. Alex Albon getting a couple of points. Nicholas Latifi seems on another planet at the moment. Is it the fact that Latifi's not doing the business is why they're still last, or are they still the 10th fastest team? What's your thoughts?
Oh God, Latifi. The fact that he finished Miami, I'm putting that straight out there. The fact that he finished Miami, that was a shock. I thought that was going to be, especially with some of those corners in Miami, how close they were and how sharp they was. I was expecting a yellow flag by him, if not red. Yeah. So the fact that he finished Miami, good. The fact that like Alex Albon's come in now this season off the back of taking a year out, he was teaching Yuki as well for half of the season. He was kind of his like development coach. And then obviously he was in the backseat, like obviously not in a full car last season to come in. He's doing all right. now that he has his red hair as well, because I don't know if y'all have seen that. The red hair equals points for him, and it's 2 times running that it's happening. So we might see red hair next weekend. But Williams is just not doing well. Like it's the same as last season to me, and a lot of it is down to Latifi, I think, because Alex has been doing a decent enough race, being it's a first year back driving after a year off. On top of it, new regs. But then obviously you can compare Kevin Magnussen's kind of in the same position as well. But obviously Kevin has a lot more years than Alex, but he's doing well. It's Latifi that is dragging them down, and it's going to get to the point where the amount of money that Latifi's dad's investing in is going to be less than how much that Williams is paying to fix all the damages that Latifi's caused. And there's been rumors about the driver swaps and all that happening. My money is on Latifi getting swapped out for some, like being dropped out of F1 or swapped around. Who knows? Because he's going to be more of a financial risk in a year of cost caps than it's actually worth it to the team. And especially Williams doesn't have as much investment in financials compared to Red Bull, Mercedes, even McLaren and Aston Martin. They don't have as much funding, so they're going to need as much money and saving as much money as they can. And if Latifi's crashing every single race, or even in qualifying P1, FP1, FP2, FP3, or whatever, it's not going to be financially stable, and you could see them capping by mid-season potentially the budget because of the cost of the crashes. I think he has the highest amount at like 15 million so far or something like that, not including Miami, but he is one of the top drivers with the most money spent on repairs and fixings in this season so far. And we're only, at that time, it was only 4 races in, so we still got another 19 or so tracks, well 18 minus Miami now, to finish, and he's already spending a lot in the cost cap. So we'll see. Williams will be bottom tier. I just don't know if they're going to be 10th or they're going to be 9th. Probably 10th because of given how well Haas have been doing. Kevin Magnussen in particular. Aston Martin will probably be 9th, but I think Williams will finish at the bottom this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just one of those ones, as I said before, where just everyone seems to be in the mix together, and if you've got one driver scoring points and the other one not, then that's not conducive to a great championship position. But that's our preview of the race itself. So I'll have a look at the predictions then. So I'm going to ask both of you if you can give me your prediction for pole position, who's going to be on the podium, and a bold prediction. So we'll go to you first, Tom. Who are you going to have for pole position at the race at the weekend?
I think Sainz is going to get home advantage, and I think it's going to give him just that extra 10th or 2 tenths. And yeah, go on. I'm going to put my... Well, I'm not going to put any money on it because I don't have any, but I'm going to say Carlos Sainz.
I'd love to see Carlos Sainz take pole for this race. Yeah. Still a fan of Carlos Sainz, despite him defecting to the red side. Sophia, what's your choice for pole position at the weekend?
Oh, I don't know. Because looking at the stats and the information for the last couple years does not help at all this season. Like, I literally have a notebook full of information and stats. I think I'm going to say Max will take pole. If they can get in check, Red Bull can get in check, I think Max will take pole.
Cool. Okay, so we'll look at the podium now then. So Tom, who do you think is Carlos Sainz going to convert it to get the win, or are we going to see some craziness and people actually changing positions in Spain?
No, don't be silly. I don't think Sainz will get the win. I think it will either go to Max or Leclerc because those two are just different gravy. You know, they are built different. And yeah, I'm going to put my money on Max. I think Max will get it because I think the grunt of that Red Bull down that main straight and down what was from turn 10 to 11, you know, the sort of like the second DRS zone, all that. I think that Red Bull is just going to absolutely yeet it, and I think it'll. I think it'll be enough. For them to just get over the line in front.
Okay, and Sophia, what's your thoughts?
I think it's going to be Charles in P1, and then I think Max to be in P2, keeping the tradition running, finishing second. And then I think Sergio Perez might finish in third, I think, because if Red Bull has the pace and like Perez has been good, it's just that he's just had some bad times a few times. But like if he put his foot down and head down, he could probably finish on the podium. So I say he's going to be P3.
Yep, certainly been a strong season start for Sergio Perez. Top 4 in every race when he's finished. So that's kind of all you can really ask of him as a definite number 2 driver. Bold predictions then. This is where it gets quite fun. What's your thoughts, Tom? What's going to be the crazy thing that's going to happen this weekend?
Let's see if he's going to keep it out the wall.
That's pretty bold.
Yeah. No, seriously. We'll just see if he installed wrong crash. That's I can't help myself. Right, third time lucky. I would say pole position. Both Mercedes in the top 8.
Okay. Given that they're the third fastest team, I would say that's probably what they would be aiming for at minimum. But we'll wait and see. Maybe they're going to be terrible, but then manage to fight back to a top 8. So we'll take that. And Sophia, your bold prediction for the weekend.
Oh, I have 2 off the top of my head that I'm kind of weighing out which one's probably statistically better. You know what? I think both Alpines will finish in top 10.
Okay. Yeah, well, that certainly would give Fernando Alonso's season a bit of a kickstart.
P9 and P10. That's it.
I thought you were going to say both Alpines top 6. I thought you were going to say something like 10. That. But yeah, no, I think it's certainly a track that might well suit the Alpines. So I can see them having a stronger race, hopefully for them anyway. But if you want to hear more from F1 Grid Talk, we have a huge back catalogue of shows you can go back and listen to, as well as reviews and previews and analysis. We also run the Fireside Chat series, which is normally airs midweek and features interviews and laid-back chats with people in and around F1. Those of you, excuse me, all of those episodes are available on YouTube, as well as historic interviews with Maurice Hamilton, Mario Zola, and even a quiz with Sean Kelly if you want to test your F1 knowledge. We also run a Patreon if you want to help us continue what we're doing, so please consider donating to us, as everything that comes in on that goes back to improving the show experience. I'll just go back to you two, as you're both involved in Everything F1. Who would like to give the plug to Everything F1 and where we can go and find that?
Sophia does.
I guess that's me. So yeah, you can find Everything F1 on our website, www.everythingf1.com. You can find us on all socials, either at Everything F1 or Join EF1. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've just started TikTok as well, which is fun. We do weekly podcasts that get presented on Wednesdays on all platforms like Spotify. But yeah, Everything F1.
And yeah, they have some great guests on there as well. They've had seems to be every week there's another new person on there that's somewhere involved in F1. People like Callum Ilot's been on there. They've had a plethora of W Series races as well. So some really good interviews on there as well. So definitely give those guys a check out. If you want to follow me for some reason, you can get me at Tom Horrox F1 on Twitter, and my podcast is The Monkey Seat, which is at monkeyseatpod.com, where me and Carl take a bit of a laid back view on Formula One. And I normally have to bleep out a lot of swearing, so apologies for that in advance. We are obviously also available on all audio platforms as well: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Verbal, Omni Studios, and Pocket Cast. And we've recently become available on Pandora and Sky Glass as well. So as well as being available on the F1 Chronicle website. All our race shows do go out live on YouTube directly after the event, so look out for us, F1 Chronicle on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. We will be back next weekend when we will review qualifying and the race for the Spanish Grand Prix. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and goodbye.